And we found that testing by other organizations suggested that a microjourney could deepen engagement and increase shares. So we decided to give it a go. So what we did was we used a survey in between a landing page, the petition or pledge, and the thank you page as our way of deepening engagement or sort of doing this microjourney. I'll just talk about the conditions in a sec, but we ran this test twice. So the first time on existing supporters as a trial run, we made some improvements to the questionnaire, and then the second time on cold, sort of the cold audience via our hero film who came to the pledge watching that short film. So the conditions are quite simple. The first is our sort of petition or pledge page, which went straight to the thank you page with a share ask. So our thank you pages, I'll explain how they're sort of laid out in a sec, but it's basically share ask straight up. And then the test condition, which was people take the petition, they get taken to a questionnaire, and then they get taken to the same thank you page with a share ask. And the questionnaire was very simple. Basically, before you go, can you ask some questions? And the questions were, which of these climate issues are you most interested in? Which of these expected climate breakdown consequences are you most concerned about? And sort of finally, and most importantly, from my perspective, was, do you want more people to get involved with addressing the climate emergency? And the thinking around this question was that since we want people to share more on the thank you page, that this would prime them to share more, because you'd imagine, or hopefully most people would press yes here, especially if they just signed a pledge. So by pressing yes, they'd sort of, and seeing the share ask, I think, oh, hopefully they'd think, oh, I just said I want more people to get involved. This is an opportunity for me to do that. I want to be self-consistent. I'll share the action. Unfortunately, what we actually found was that the first time around, the shares significantly decreased by quite a bit. I think the questionnaire wasn't really that great at that time. So once we improved it, there was no significant difference, still not exactly what we were looking for. But interestingly, the donations, the conversion rate for single donations or cash, I think is the jargon for it. I'm not a fundraiser, so I'm not best on that. So yeah, the conversion rates for single donations was significantly greater when we ran this the second time. The effect size was small, and the total number of donations was small. Of course, because this was a secondary ask, and the average donation, we also found that the average donation was greater too. None of this was that I can't comment on whether it's significant or not. But what was really interesting was that it seemed to have an impact on donations, despite donations being displayed as a secondary ask. And what I mean by that is that our thank you page tends to be thank you, can you share? And sort of the next block after that is a sort of share buttons. And then below that, right at the bottom, if you really scroll that far down, is a donation ask. On the top bit there, if you press no, it goes no to the share ask, goes straight to donation too. But yeah, so it's quite surprising that sort of we saw an increase in donations, but not shares off the back of that. Yes, we decided to explore optimizing for donations to investigate this further. So that brings us to the current test that I ran. Just to say that original test was actually done sort of this time last year, so New Year's last year as a New Year pledge. And this one I'm talking through now was done in July, sort of to follow up off the back of that. So yeah, so there were 4 conditions here, a little bit more complex, but basically the first condition is a petition to thank you page control. The second condition was a petition to thank you page with inverted asks, and so what that means is that, so this is the control, same as I've shown you before, basically, thank you, will you share? The inverted asks was, thank you, will you donate? Then you've got the donate block first and the share ask right at the bottom. And the reason for doing this is because the 2 questionnaire variants or conditions, we're going to have a flipped asks on the thank you page as well, because we're sort of prioritizing for donations. So this condition is sort of to act as a pseudo control or a sort of baseline to see whether just flipping the asks increases donations, or whether the questionnaire itself is actually doing so. And then the final 2 conditions are both conditions where people take the petition, they get faced with a questionnaire, the same questionnaire, and then there's 2 different thank you pages. And the only difference between these thank you pages is the wording on the top. So the condition 3 was, thank you, there's one more thing you can do to help our planet. Can you donate? And condition 4 was a more of an urgent appeal sort of framing, because obviously this was going on in the sort of first wave of coronavirus, I guess. yeah, and the condition 3 here was you sort of decided to go with this as a sort of stronger link to the questionnaire. So this condition 4 isn't as strongly linked at all. So the questionnaire on the second question here is, what do you want to do? So what do you do to protect our climate and wildlife? So by asking, there's one more thing you can do, sort of that's the sort of link between the two. The rest of the questionnaire is quite simple as before. There's only 2 questions this time, but obviously they've got quite a lot of options. First question again is stolen from the first questionnaire. The first question is the second question on the first questionnaire, and yeah, again it's pretty simple. So what do we? Oh yeah, our hypotheses. So as you might expect, we thought that asking petition signers to complete a mini questionnaire between signing the petition and being asked to donate will increase the chance of them donating. And as I said, as the final question in the questionnaire asks what people are already doing for the environment, the thank you page with there's one more thing you can do to help our planet, framing will perform better than the urgent appeal one. So our initial results after 1 week and about 5,000 people hitting the thank you page in each condition. As you can see here, the blue bars are all the control, orange are the inverted thank you page, so condition 2, and the 2 green bars are the 2 questionnaire variants or conditions. So yeah, all donation focused variants performed better than the control, as you can see. And the questionnaire variants performed significantly better than the inverted thank you page asks. So that's really interesting. You can see here how big the jump is as well between the inverted thank you page and the questionnaire. Obviously, the conversion rate on the left-hand axis is between 0 and 5%. So that's pretty small, but donations on these thank you pages are very small in themselves. And if you look at the numbers for the control of 0.32 in the middle column there, 0.32% of people donating compared to 3.16 in the very specific in the condition 4, that's quite a jump. Yeah, so this suggests that questionnaires could be having an impact, and it's not just the stopping of the asks. Also found that if you just ignore the final column set of columns for a sec, but that the questionnaire, at least in condition 4 with the urgent appeal framing, also had sort of a higher average donation amount than the other conditions, and certainly than the control. And I'm pretty sure this massive jump in the control and the regular gift set of columns on the far right is an anomaly or an error. You'll see in the longer term results that this is sort of evened out with the rest. So I'm not quite sure what's going on there. Yeah, so average donations seem to possibly increase as well. It's worth saying that obviously shares, as you'd expect, have decreased from 35% of people sharing to 20%. But that's sort of a trade-off that we'd expect, really, I guess. So at this stage, we decided to switch off 2 of the variants because condition 4 was sort of it's either performing as well as potentially better than condition 3, and so we just decided to keep that one running, and we kept condition 1 running to keep testing between the 2, but also to sort of split the benefits of more donations and focusing on shares, because we sort of wanted to capture a bit of both. So after 3 months more of testing just these 2 conditions with each other, hang on, I'm just going to scroll to my notes on my other screen. Yeah, we found that with 15,000 people in each conditions, and after sort of more time passing, the effect size between the control and the questionnaire variant, the effect size was sort of about the same as before. So that's really interesting, and that's really good that over time and with 3 times as many people, as initially were on the page, this has sort of remained. However, the difference in donation and average donation between the pages are sort of leveled out now over time. And so I didn't explain before here actually, but the columns on the left is sort of like I think an amalgamation of sort of the single gift and the regular gifts in the middle and right. So I just tend to focus most on the single gift, I think. Again, shares have decreased the same amount as before. So yeah, that's sort of the findings. So sorry about the wordy slide here, but some concluding thoughts is that, well, implementing a questionnaire could possibly increase post-action donations, and more so than just flipping the asks on the thank you page. Interestingly, there doesn't actually have to seem to be much of a link between the thank you page and the questionnaire before it for the donation ask to have an effect. I think that was really interesting because previously I was trying really hard to make that link, but I'm sure further testing needs to be done to sort of iron that out, and maybe it is important in it's just this instance. Yeah, it's possibly more impactful for single donations versus regular donations. If you look at those bars, which I think will be shared later, you can see that the effect sizes seem to be bigger for those. And obviously this is a sacrifice of post-action shares, so there's no door in the face effect where asking for something big first and then something smaller later increases that smaller ask. I think it's really important still to investigate more if the benefits of the questionnaire and donations outweigh the higher risk for people of dropping off on the questionnaire. So about 19% of people, there's a 19% exit rate on the questionnaire. So it's not a massive number, but it's still a chunk of people who are sort of not hitting that thank you page. And so it's still something that needs to be sort of worked out, or ironed out the cost benefit analysis of that basically. And finally, sort of it'd be good to see how this works and when it's best to use this, because you can't really use it on everything all the time. I don't think, possibly it's good to use on specific segments of supporters. So for example, people who are new or recently recruited, maybe on a welcome journey, something like that. So that being said, with that said, this hasn't sort of been integrated or used as of yet in a broader application, but definitely thinking about ways in which this can be done. Also, I would have liked to do some more testing before implementing it in any strong way, and there just hasn't been a good opportunity to do that in a similar way to this yet. And finally, from a testing perspective, I really should have tested, I think, the difference between the two questionnaire variants and the control, and probably the inverted share ask thank you page as well for longer than I did. But sort of with the sort of circumstances, I think it was an important trade-off to focus on those. And finally, just to finish on, this is the total donations with a big pinch of salt. These numbers are from OmniConvert, which, if you heard Joachim earlier said, isn't the best necessarily. So don't treat these figures as accurate, especially with the decimal places. But just to say, it's quite when you look at that, it's quite an astonishing jump between the condition and the questionnaire framing in terms of donations. So yeah, just a fun slide to end on, but take it with a pinch of salt. Quite a big pinch, an unhealthy pinch of salt. Yeah, that's it for me. Sorry for a bit of a rushed tour through that, but I'm happy to take any questions.